Hello and welcome back to the Blues Brothers YouTube channel. This is going to be the first edition of Blues Brothers Added Time, where myself and co-host George will be running through questions sent in by you, the viewers and listeners of the podcast. George, great to have you on board for your first appearance on the YouTube channel. Let's get stuck right into it then. And I'm not sure if you've seen this, but pretty bit of breaking news in the last couple of hours that Carlo Ancelotti is going to be heading back to Real Madrid from Everton. An official announcement is expected shortly. What are your thoughts on that, Ancelotti back to Real Madrid?
Just seems to be the same managers that get recycled, doesn't it? You know, I think the big clubs tend to go through the tried and tested, and they haven't excused themselves doing it again with Ancelotti. I'm more surprised the other way. I'm more surprised Everton were willing to let him go, because it was such... When the news came through that he was obviously appointed as Everton manager, it was such a big break for them to get someone of that experience and that calibre who's pretty much won it all. You know, he's won the Champions League, he's won Premier League, obviously with Chelsea, and to have him, it seemed like Everton were going to springboard, you know, up to the next level and challenge for Europe. And I think a lot of people were, okay, maybe it was a bit ambitious, but people were looking over their shoulders around Christmas time that Everton started so well last season. It obviously transpires that they tailed off very badly. And I think that's probably the cause where, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's because Everton can't maybe afford to keep him on. Maybe Ancelotti's thinks that he's made a mistake ambition-wise and feels that Everton aren't up to it. But I mean, for me, Real Madrid, it's a safe appointment, isn't it? I mean, again, he's been there, he's done it with Real Madrid. I think Real Madrid and Barcelona, I don't want to sound too critical, but they're clubs that manage themselves in a way. I mean, barring a disaster, they're not going to finish outside the top four, and that is a terrible, terrible season for those two clubs. So it's a safe bet for me. But I am definitely surprised, mate.
Are you surprised that they've not that they've overlooked the likes of Antonio Conte and gone with a kind of the safe pair of hands in Ancelotti?
Well, I said it on our podcast. I'm not surprised they didn't go for Conte because of the style of play. I think, you know, even at Chelsea, look, granted, we played some outstanding football under Conte, but it's not the style that Real Madrid want. There's always that extra pressure with Real Madrid, that they don't just want the wins, they want the style as well. And I think Conte's style of play is a bit more rigid, whereas Ancelotti's very much more expansive. When we saw that, we had a record-breaking season for goals under Ancelotti, didn't we? I think 100 plus, and we had a few 7 and 8s in there. And it will be a shoe-in fit. You know, he knows the background. There's not that whole settling in. Yes, it'll be a new squad and maybe some new people upstairs, but all in all, he'll know the system. And it's been exciting times. Certainly managerial appointments in the last week or so. It's been absolutely crazy, but not surprised, no.
Yeah, I think it's a safe appointment by Real Madrid, as you said. They know exactly what they're getting. Ancelotti's been at the club before. He knows how they operate. Obviously the squad will be slightly different. He's going to have the task of moving on a lot of aging players and kind of bringing through the next cycle. But, you know, he's a top manager. He's done it at some big European clubs. I'm not surprised that he's moved on from Everton. You can't say no when the big boys come calling. But just a quick word on Everton, George. Obviously, Ancelotti was brought in. You know, they've had all the funds in the last couple of years. It's going to be the big project to try and propel Everton back up, and now it's been ripped up. They're now obviously looking for their 5th manager in the last 5 years. Where do you think that leaves the Everton project?
I think it's almost scrap the sheet and start again. It's quite... I'm disappointed for them, because I really did think this was going to be a turning point for them. You know, like I alluded to earlier, you know, getting that appointment of a manager, that sets the high standards that they want to push on for. And obviously, they had a bit of a war chest to fund the players they want. Rodriguez came in, and they started really, really brightly. But I honestly don't know what's happened. And like you said, 5 managers looking for their 5th manager in 5 years. It's disappointing, because they're a big club. They've got huge history, and they were, you know, under David Moyes, they were always in that conversation for the top 4, certainly European football. And now, who's gonna go to that club if Ancelotti, a person like Carlo Ancelotti, can't break that mould? We've seen what's happened at Leicester, and they've managed to do a fantastic job with less resources, you could argue. So it leaves them in a very difficult situation. I think it's project restart, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I'd 100% agree with that. I think the next appointment's critical, and it needs to be someone that's given the backing and given the opportunity to implement ideas and bring players in over a number of years. But moving on, George, obviously N'Golo Kante with another outstanding performance in the Champions League final. His form has definitely taken a turn for the better since the early part of the year. Obviously, man of the match in the final and both legs of the semi-final. People now sort of saying that is a possibility for the Balon d'Or. Do you think he deserves to be in the shout for the Balon d'Or this year?
Definitely needs to be in the conversation. I mean, we might be getting it too far ahead of ourselves in recent history because you have to look over an entire year. And I think it's safe to say that we had our doubts about N'Golo Kante at the start, where he looked a bit blown out. Looked like his engine had gone and age was catching up with him in his position. But, you know, certainly in the last 3 or so months, he's been, again, so influential for us. And again, just looking through the things he's won over his career, again, it's the Ballon d'Or. You need to take into account that it's focusing on that year, not as his career, but he's won it all, hasn't he? You know, European Cup, World Cup, Champions League, Europa League, Premier League. So he's done absolutely everything, and he certainly should be in the conversation. I don't think he'll win it personally, but it would be great to just give some recognition for someone who's, I mean, iconically in this in this competition or this, you know, award, it's not necessarily given to those types of players. They're the unsung heroes. It usually goes to the strikers, or, you know, so I'm not expecting him to win the award, but definitely should be in the conversation without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the Ballon d'Or itself, I think it needs reformatting in terms of the fact that it just seems to be, if you're a forward player, basically it always goes to them. I think something that Xavi said a while ago is that there should be a Ballon d'Or for each position, just to make it fairer. So the best in the world for your position that year, because otherwise, like, a lot of fantastic players that do a lot over a course of a season don't get the recognition because they're basically not the ones that put the ball in the net. So I think that's perhaps something to be looked at. But yeah, I think he should definitely be up there in the conversation, obviously along with Robert Lewandowski, who was last year robbed when they cancelled the ceremony. Interesting one here, but George, moving on to the next question. There's been some rumours doing the rounds, I've seen this on Twitter, about Sergio Ramos potentially signing for Manchester City. Obviously, they've just signed, Real Madrid have signed David Alaba on a big contract. Ramos's contract is up in the summer. It's obvious that he looks like he's going to be moving on as a free agent. Do you think that this is just paper talk, or do you think there's anything concrete to him potentially going to Manchester City?
I think that's a bit of noise from his agent, or trying to get him a big money move, because we alluded to it on the episode, didn't he? He's kind of gone out. He's not obviously in the Spain squad. He's gone down in terms of form. He's coming to the end of his career. I think he would do very well personally to get a role at Manchester City, but it'd be a very strange appointment. I mean, considering the rivalry that Pep Guardiola had with Barcelona and Real Madrid, his disciplinary record, his age. I mean, the wages that he'll be asking for will be exponential. So I can't see it. I think it's just paper talk and trying, maybe from his team, trying to make him get a move out of Real Madrid. But no, you know, if he's a free agent, a lot of people will be knocking on the door because of his experience and his quality. If he can reach those heights that he has reached in his career, then he's a great player. But no, certainly not for Manchester City for me.
Just on that, obviously we've seen ageing centre-halves come into the Premier League, particularly Thiago Silva at Chelsea, signed last summer and has done well, and is obviously probably going to sign a new one-year deal. Do you think there's a possibility we could see Ramos in the Premier League, or do you think he can perhaps go and ply his trade maybe in Serie A or at PSG?
I mean, there's definitely potential, because, like I said, a player of that quality, you have to take a look at it, even if you don't end up going for it. And I think certainly some of the big clubs will. But again, Thiago Silva was still a strange one. I mean, we all wanted him, of course, but because we had the problems at the backs. But I don't think City have that problem. So the only other clubs I could potentially see him at is maybe Manchester United, because they might go for someone to partner Maguire. But I think that's a bit of a strange partnership. I can't see that working. Liverpool, I can't see them adding Ramos to their back line. So then you're looking further down the list with a Spurs or possibly an Everton. And if Ramos wants to go from Real Madrid to Everton, I think that's a very strange appointment. So I personally think that he would go somewhere like a PSG, or maybe even Serie A. In my personal opinion, I think that's more likely.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. Okay, moving on to the final question then. The manager of the season nominees came out earlier today. Quite a surprise to definitely myself, and I'm sure many others. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was among the nominations for manager of the season. What are your thoughts on him being nominated for that award?
Well, I want to know who's doing the votes, because I cannot believe that he's even in the conversation. I'm sorry. I mean, what? He's come runners up in a league where we've had the whole pandemic, where every club has pretty much underachieved on their levels, including Manchester City themselves, with the amount of losses and point total they've got compared to other seasons. And other than that, they've reached a competition where they got knocked out of the biggest competition, went into a B grade competition, and then couldn't even win that. I just find it absolutely embarrassing with the the financial status that they've got, and just everything Manchester United have done as a club this season has been horrendous. And I think that even the fans, I'm not just saying that as a biased point of view, I actually feel sorry for some of their fans, because they've actually stood up. They hate the owners. Maybe they like Ollie because of the whole history he's got with the club. And I'm not saying that Ollie's a bad person, but manager of the season, you must be having a laugh, right? I cannot imagine. No chance. Chance.
I have to say I was very surprised, and I'd really like to know how they come to the decision that he gets on to the nominees. But yeah, I think it's not a poor season, but Man United standards, second in a one-horse race for the title, and knocked out in the group stage of the Champions League, knocked out of both domestic cups, lost the Europa League final to a village team. And yeah, I just don't see how that warrants being nominated for manager of the season. But on just a quick word on the nominees, George. Obviously, we've got Marcelo Bielsa's in there, Brendan Rodgers, David Moyes, and Pep Guardiola, who joined Solskjaer. Out of those, who would you like to see win it, and who do you think will win it?
Who I'd like to see win it, I would agree with you. I'd say Brendan Rodgers. I'd like to see him win it. I think Leicester City as a club, one of the best run clubs in England, got a great rapport with the board and the staff members there, and the fans love them. And for what they've achieved this season, to win the FA Cup against us, unfortunately, but I mean against all the odds as well, first time in their history. But who do I think will win it? I've said it all along. I think usually it's the title winners. I take, even though the Champions League, would have made it definitely my stonewall choice, I still think Pep Guardiola is going to get manager of the season.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think it will go to Pep. Domestically, they've been outstanding, great form in the league, done really well, never in doubt really once they sort of clicked into gear. I agree. I think Brendan Rodgers should be manager of the season. FA Cup, first one in Leicester's history. Again, I know he just missed out on the top four, but it's still a fantastic season. But I'd also like to give an honourable mention to David Moyes. I know West Ham ultimately fell short in the race for the Champions League, but they've 6th place, Europa League football. And considering they only just avoided relegation last season, I think it's a fantastic job that he's done there. I don't often praise him because I don't think he's a great manager, but credit where it's due. I think he's really done an outstanding job. But that brings the first episode of Blues Brothers Added Time to an end. George, thank you for joining me. As always, guys, make sure you smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. And we'll be back with a new video very soon.